This is As It Happens. Tonight.
Hot and bothered, a BBC reporter explains how his outlet came under attack for reporting temperature records in Europe this week by people claiming the coverage was not that hot, and neither was the weather.
Conspiracy theorists have been targeting reporting by the mainstream media for a long time, usually on hot-button issues like politics, school shootings, or global pandemics. This week, they went after weather reports. The Earth has been experiencing some of the highest temperatures ever recorded, and the BBC has been dutifully reporting on the heat wave in parts of southern Europe and North Africa. But online, and even on the right-wing British TV channel GB News, commentators have been questioning whether the heat being reported was actually that hot. So much so that the BBC published an article debunking the conspiracy claims. Marco Silva is the BBC's climate change disinformation specialist. We reached him in Oxford.
Marco, can you walk us through exactly what these commentators have claimed about the BBC's coverage of the heat wave?
Yes, so absolutely. In the last few days, I've noticed a number of social media posts making this very similar claim, especially on Twitter, by the way. And the claim was that journalists, media outlets, including the BBC, got their reporting on the heatwave in southern Europe wrong. The suggestion here was that the temperatures in these places would actually lower than those reported by media outlets like the BBC. And the suggestion here was that weather presenters, reporters were intentionally misleading people about this heatwave to spread fear, to control people, which is, by the way, for anyone who covers mis and disinformation, a pretty common conspiracy theory that we saw emerging during the COVID-19 pandemic.
In fact, I'm looking at one post right now which says that the BBC's weather forecast from Sardinia was 48.2 degrees Celsius, whereas the weather station there itself, it says, charted 41.5 degrees Celsius. And they have two pictures back to back. Can you just explain that for us?
Yes, absolutely. So that was indeed one of the claims that I've been looking into. That particular tweet, you're referring to a temperature record that was taken in the municipality of Jerzu, a municipality in Sardinia, in Italy. And on Monday there, an air temperature of 48.2 degrees centigrade was recorded there. Now, this is the highest temperature in Europe so far this year. And some users, like the one that put out that particular tweet, claimed that indeed this was not the case, that the real temperature was much lower, that the media had hyped the whole thing, and that this was all a lie, an elaborate lie. But when I looked at the data myself, I approached Sardinia's regional agrometeorological service, and I looked at the data from their various weather stations across the island. And in the municipality of Jerzu, I saw this same reading, 48.2 degrees. So it matched our reporting. There was no doubt that indeed the temperature recorded in Jerzu was exactly what we had reported.
Well, I'll just ask you point blank. Is the BBC misreporting temperatures in its reports?
No. Based on every instance that I looked into, I found no evidence of the BBC misreporting a particular temperature reading.
So if the BBC is reporting temperatures like it always does, why do you think so many people are eager to believe it's not actually as hot as the media is telling them it is?
I haven't conducted academic research on the motivations of the people sharing these theories and sharing these claims. What I do have is, my own experience. And what I can tell you is that looking at the types of accounts that are sharing these narratives, what you can see is that there is a genuine sense of mistrust. There's a crisis of trust going on. Trust in the media, trust in institutions, trust in science, trust in politicians. And this, in a way, is just a manifestation of that. This is people doubting facts that perhaps 20, 30 years ago, who would have, questioned. After this piece was published, all day, I can tell you, I've been receiving a torrent of abuse on social media, people accusing me of trying to push an agenda, push a narrative down their throats, of peddling lies. I can tell you that's certainly not the case. As a reporter, I'm not here to tell people what they should do about climate change, how they should vote. As a reporter, I just want people to have the facts so that they can make informed decisions. But it is certainly remarkable that we don't even appear to be able to agree on the basic facts anymore.
And some of these posts are getting a lot of views on them. The clip by the GB News presenter Neil Oliver that's viewed more than 2 million times. It accuses the BBC of driving fear by using, quote, terrifying temperatures. And how much does that concern you that that these are getting so many eyes and so many views on them?
As a climate change mis- and disinformation reporter, it is my job to identify these narratives and doing my absolute best to fact check these claims. The truth is that some of these narratives, some of these claims might appear unique, might appear that they are exclusive to the conversation, say, about the heat waves in Southern Europe. But I know, as someone who observes how these claims spread and how these narratives circulate and spread online, I can tell you that they tend to reappear in different places, at different times, just with different versions of those same false narratives. And guess what? They're in Canada too. Some of your listeners might remember that, a couple of months ago, this was also a narrative. A lot of people suggesting that wildfires had nothing to do with climate change, when the science, again, is very clear. Fires aren't caused by climate change, but climate change certainly creates ideal conditions for these wildfires to happen and spread and become especially intense.
Just briefly, do you answer those people who question and who have been criticizing your journalism?
Not anymore. I don't know if it is right or wrong. Perhaps in the early days of my career, I used to, but then I realized that for many of these people, who are sharing these false and misleading claims, there's nothing I can say that will persuade them to change their mind. And I realize that perhaps, I only have so many hours in my day to do my job. I realize that perhaps my time is better spent, investigating, fact-checking, debunking, and reporting, rather than, spending endless hours, replying to people on social media who approach me.
Marco, good to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Marco Silva is the BBC's climate change disinformation specialist. He's in Oxford.